Time to take another look at the morning papers. Here with me reviewing this morning are the journalist and author Yasmin Alibhai-Brown and the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder. So welcome back to both of you. For the third and final look at the papers, Nancy, I think you're kicking us off this time. And it's actually the story that's the lead main story on the front page of The Times and goes on into page 2 as well. And this is their suggestion that the Tories are looking at whether or not they might scrap inheritance tax. So talk us through exactly what they're saying.
Yes, so there are discussions behind the scenes as to whether the sort of big headline grabber, the big vote winner ahead of the general election could be scrapping inheritance tax. Now, it just makes me think how full circle the Conservatives have come in who they try to persuade. This is very deliberately aimed at people with an awful lot of money in expensive houses in the south. Because I can tell you that the sort of red wall that turned blue in Rotherham, in Stockbridge, in Doncaster, there are hardly any houses there that pass through inheritance tax, because if you're a couple, you've got to need to have £1 million property to pass on before you hit these inheritance tax rules. So, I mean, it's just what happened to levelling up. I mean, I hated it at the time. We haven't seen any of it, and they've completely dumped the North. This is not even pretending to help anybody other than a very specific geographical area and a very specific amount of wealthy people. I mean, I understand that houses are a lot more expensive. I understand that in London, £1 million house might not be a lot, but for the red wall that was what actually brought them to power in the first place, this is not going to help anybody at all. I find it quite interesting. I'd love to know what happened to levelling up, and we didn't see sign of it really. We'd heard a lot of talk, and we've seen nothing.
And Nancy, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in their analysis, they talk about how Rishi Sunak wants to maintain a reputation for economic competence, but also that he wants to distinguish himself from Labour's tax line as well. But it is a reminder, isn't it, that he has such a range of seats now with, as you say, that so-called red wall in the north, but also the kind of more prosperous southern seats. It's quite difficult to appeal to both, potentially, Nancy.
It is, and I think what Boris Johnson did was he managed to keep hold of the traditional seats, which is clearly what this policy is aimed at if it comes to fruition. But he also managed to sweet talk huge areas that had never voted Conservative before, and I just don't think Rishi's got that skills. I'm not sure Boris had ever had the skills or the intention to bring them in and to make the actual changes, but there are a lot of Conservatives MPs who are looking very uncomfortable and very unlikely to still have a job after the next election, particularly if this is what their big plan is, to win votes.
Well, we'll wait and see. That's an interesting one to watch, obviously. And you mentioned Boris Johnson, and he's the subject of the story that you've picked, Yasmin, in The Mirror.
It's just astonishing to me. You know, now we know what we know about Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister, and even now, that people around the world are prepared to pay him, according to The Mirror, £21,000 an hour. For what? For his wisdom? He has no wisdom. But he's got this celeb status now. And that's what I think, the northern voters fell for. The charm, the clown, the one who seemed to be one of them, who could get away with things. But it is quite shocking to me. And actually, Liz Truss, who cost us this economy how much money, is earning £15,000 a year, an hour. So life after politics seems extremely lucrative, I must say.
And this comes actually from...
Make me question the morality of those people who are paying them this amount of money.
It comes from Sky News analysis of data, I think, as well. But the one thing that people would say, of course, Yasmin, is these people reach the highest office in the country, and people are fascinated about their insights.
But we now know, having seen the biography of Anthony Seldon, who's not a lefty like me, that this Prime Minister was one of the most dishonest, probably the most dishonest we've ever had. Are they paying for his lies or how to cheat and con the public? I mean, there's got to be something that matters about a leader's record. This leader has nothing but a very poor record, except, like I said, conning people and winning them over. So there are questions to ask about why are they paying. I mean, Egypt, which has incredible poverty, paid him a whole fortune. For what? It's not his fault. He's just pocketing what he's been given. But what are these people doing?
Okay, interesting one. I think it is always former prime ministers that do top that list of outside earners, whether you're Labour or Conservative. Let's move over to the Times, I think it is next, Nancy, isn't it? And this is an article about regional accents. So what does it tell us?
Yeah, so this is interesting. This is on the back of the Labour Party and Keir Starmer saying if children are taught to speak better, then they will get further in life. And actually, this is an Oxford academic who says he swerved actually the big problem, which is as soon as you open your mouth, if you're from certain areas, and it's not really a north-south thing, everybody talks about the north, but actually, if you've got a really strong Cockney accent, it doesn't help you either. There are massive stereotypes attached to you and massive assumptions made that you maybe not be very clever, that you might not have money, that you're from a certain class. And she's actually saying this, what we need to do is look at addressing accents, and we need to make sure that people can talk. I mean, I'm quite biased about this. You can clearly hear I've got a strong Yorkshire accent, but you need to be able to talk. It's not the problem for the people who are speaking, it's the problem for the listeners, isn't it? And I think we all carry these biases, but it is interesting. You're less likely to do well in a job interview, you're less likely to earn the same money as somebody who's got the classic BBC accent, and less than 10% of people have got that accent. So this is interesting. Actually, Keir Starmer does need to address this because he talks about how well we all should pronounce words, but the big elephant in the room is that we all come with our stereotypes.
We're out of time. Fascinating to see people of all accents in all jobs. That would help change perspectives maybe. But we're out of time. Lovely to see you both this weekend. Thanks so much.